back working on the 350 for the C10. What I'm doing here is I'm cleaning up the head bolts prior to putting them back on. They're all in this can. So here's what they look like at this motor at least. This is out of the 84 motor. These bolts were in better shape than the ones that came out of 73 motor. 73 bolts are real rusty. So what I'm doing is I have my grinder here with a wire wheel on it. And this works real good for cleaning all the goo out of the threads in here. Because you want a good, you need a clean thread surface on these so you get an accurate torque. I'm reusing head bolts. Some cars you can't. Most modern cars, aluminum heads, have what's called torque-heeled head bolts. The first time you torque the head bolts, they stretch under the load. And if you reuse them, you'll never get an accurate torque out of them ever again. But on these older motors, I mean, I don't know, it's fine to reuse them. Some people are probably going to comment saying, oh no, you can't reuse them. Yes, you can. These things are designed in the 50s. There's no reason. As long as they're in good condition, you can just reuse them again. But I'll show you how this works here on the grinder. This is kind of death-defying, but I'm kind of used to doing it. So let me turn my shady grinder on here with the broken power switch. I just kind of work it back and forth on the threads and just clean them off. Yeah, the grinder just started doing that, so that's something new. There we go. That's new as of about 5 minutes ago. Let's clean the heads off too. The ones that are on the outside of the motor are kind of rusty. And the ones that run through the valve cover just have like oil burnt onto them. So there you go. Much cleaner, nicer, all that good stuff. Just gotta do that for every other bolt in the motor. I already, I guess, preliminarily cleaned the deck surface and the block. So it's pretty good. Cleaned all that, all that, all that. I just use one of these angle die grinders with these little cookie wheels in them. There's two grits you primarily use. There's like a purple one, which is a medium, and then a brown that's a more aggressive one. I'm using the medium on these. And I started working on the cylinder heads now. About a quarter way through this head before I run out of air in the compressor. Something to note, I don't know what the deal is with this. I'm going to show up on camera. There's like a really aggressive crosshatch in these heads. Like corduroy level crosshatching. I mean, I guess this motor might have been rebuilt before, but that, like, you can feel this with your finger, like it's pretty serious. But I mean, it's been together. I don't know. It's weird, never seen that before at all. So I guess we'll see how that pans out. But I'll show you how this deal cleans them up. Here's this little grinding wheel, so here's a fresh one. I'll put a new one on just so you get the full effect on camera. We just kind of run this thing on like I use a little bit of an angle. You want to hold it one spot too long, this will actually take away metal like a regular, like a grinder. Even though this is kind of like a Brillo pad material, it can't actually like start throwing sparks, taking away the metal. Compressor kicked back on, so I gotta let it refill. My compressor is from 1950s, so it's not the quickest thing on earth. Okay, it's time to put the head back on here. Something I just noticed, which is odd. On these Chevy motors, there should be a dowel pin here and here. There's no dowel pin there. And it's not in the heads, I just checked. Now, the nice thing about the dowel pins is that when you lay the gasket on, it holds the gasket, stays put, and also like lines the head up. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to use one of these short head bolts. I'll have to put it through the head and hold the gasket on this side. This side will line up. But I brake cleaned everything off. Got my head gasket set here. There's no left or right, these head gaskets, so it doesn't really matter. There we go. World's strongest tape again in the box. And these are your standard replacement, like Velcro head gasket with this blue stuff on. The blue stuff helps like seal the imperfections in the head. Like I said, I already brake cleaned the whole surface off here. Another one up there. And there's little like divots in the head gaskets that go on these heads, on these dowel pins rather. That's gonna be real nice. That was your smooth move of the night right there with the head bolt. Now I can put the rest of them in as long as the head doesn't fall off the second I walk away from it. Put a few turns in that. Okay, I'm putting the head bolts back in. Like I said, clean head bolts. All the head bolts go into the water jackets. So they go into where the coolant lives in the motor. That's why you saw them when I was taking the heads off the other motor, the coolant started pissing out of all these holes. So what you do is you put a sealant on it. This is what I use. Just says thread seal with PTFE. It's basically like a liquid Teflon tape that you put on like plumbing pipes and stuff like that. You can see it's like Elmer's paste from grade school. So you just put on the bolts, a good dollop all the way around. Little tip for you too, whenever you're putting this like any kind of stuff on threads, you don't need to do it the whole length of the thread. If you put the tip, it'll spread up as you tighten it. So then you just put it into the holes, and for now I'm just kind of tightening them until it makes contact. I'm not torquing them yet. As far as the sealant goes, I know some people also use that like Indian head gasket sealer. It's in a little brown, it's like a pill bottle looking thing. That stuff is probably one of the nastiest substances in the face of the earth though. It stinks, it gets on your fingers, it won't come off. It's almost like a pine pitch or whatever, like tar material. It's really gross. And that's why I use this Teflon stuff over that. Okay, it's the next day now. I stopped filming because the camera died. Meantime, last night I put the other head on. I have this head all ready to go. All the bolts are just snug. Got my torque wrench here, and I have the torque sequence, which you can see at the bottom of the web page there. On heads normally, and well, a few other car parts, there's a specific sequence you're supposed to torque these bolts in. Now, the final torque for these bolts is 65 foot-pounds. Even though it doesn't call for it, I'm going to do this in 2 steps. So we're going to put the wrench up to about 30 foot-pounds here, which is there. Then you just tighten each bolt in sequence that it calls for there until it reaches the torque. In case you don't know, on a torque wrench, at least this style and mechanical style, it'll make a slight click when it reaches its torque. That was it there. Then 2's up here. Fun part is the phone turning off while I'm doing it. 3's down here. 4. And 5. Basically what it does is it slowly spreads the torque of the head out as you're bringing it down. That's what they're aiming for, at least here. A lot of times this gets updated, so does the torque over the years, especially on a motor this old. And sometimes when you buy head bolts or a head gasket set from places, they'll actually give you whatever the newest spec is. I'm not real concerned about that, being this is a, I guess it'd be a 1984, 1973 motor now. So what torque do I go for? Do I go for the 1984 motor, or do I go for the 1973 heads? Okay, that was all the bolts. Now I'm going to ramp it up to the 65. There's 65. Now we just redo the same pattern again. There you go, they're all torqued. Another good tip for you, whenever you're done with your torque wrench, you should leave it untorqued so the spring doesn't get fatigued and give you an improper torque. So whenever you store it, make sure it's backed all the way off. Well, there the head's all on. So there's another step done. You can peekaboo in there and see the new head gasket. And all the dirt still in the lifter valley, which I may or may not clean out. But now I gotta address the timing cover oil pan fiasco. I think everything will fit, but we'll see what happens. That's what we're working on next time.